Good afternoon, 8th grade. It is Monday, May 11th. Hope you had a great weekend. We're about to be done with this book, guys. We're on the last section. But before we start 24.3, you have quiz 44 today. Go ahead and take quiz 44, then come back to the lesson. Alright, hopefully you guys have finished quiz 44. Hopefully it wasn't too hard for you. We're going to be looking at 24.3, America Land of Opportunity, pages 393 to 396. You will not do the section review today. So let's begin. America, Land of Opportunity, melting pot. In the late 20th century, America experienced an immigration boom not equaled since the beginning of the century. These new immigrants came to America for the opportunity to work and build a better life for themselves and their families. So let's look at Hispanic Americans first. The fastest growing and largest minority ethnic group in the United States was made up of Spanish-speaking or Hispanic Americans. Most Hispanic Americans came from Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. Many Cubans sought political and economic freedom in the United States after Fidel Castro came to power in 1959. By 2012, the Hispanic population grew to 53 million in the United States. Hispanics achieved much success in American life. Some became state governors and others served their states in Congress. Joseph Marion Hernandez was the first Hispanic in Congress. He was elected by Florida in 1822. And in 1988, President Reagan appointed the first Hispanic cabinet member, Laura Cavazos, as Secretary of Education. The first Hispanic U.S. Supreme Court Justice was Sonia Sotomayor, who was appointed by President Barack Obama in 2009. So let's look at some Black Americans. By 2012, the Black American population had reached 44 million. After the Civil Rights Movement, many Black Americans had made significant and successful political gains. Robert C. Weaver was the first Black American cabinet member in 1966. He was appointed by Lyndon B. Johnson to be the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. In 2001, Colin Powell was the first Black American to be appointed Secretary of State. And in 2005, under President George W. Bush, Condoleezza Rice became the first Black American woman to be appointed Secretary of State. And then, of course, in 2009, President Barack Obama became the first Black American president. Now let's look at Asian Americans. Communist oppression prompted many Asians to flee to freedom in the United States and Canada. By 2012, 18.9 million Asians lived in the United States. Their strong sense of family values, education, and efficiency in business made the Asian Americans one of the most prosperous ethnic groups in the United States. Since education is a high priority for their families, Asian Americans have a higher percentage of advanced degrees than any other ethnic group in America. Many Asian Americans have been elected to high positions in government. In 1959, Senator Daniel Ken Inouye of Hawaii became the first Japanese American to serve in the U.S. Congress. The first Japanese American woman to serve in Congress, Representative Patsy Takemoto Meek, also represented Hawaii. In 2000, Norman Yoshio Mineta was the first Asian American to serve on the U.S. Cabinet as Secretary of Commerce. Now let's look at Native Americans. The 2012 census recorded 5.2 million Native Americans in the United States. The first Native American to serve in Congress was Brad Carson from the Cherokee tribe in 1967. He was elected by the state of Oklahoma as a U.S. representative. Ben Nighthorse Campbell of Colorado served as a U.S. representative from 1987 to 1993, and then served as a U.S. senator from 1993 to 2005. The United States has always been proud of her reputation as the melting pot, the idea that many different cultures have come together in America with the understanding that all must work together regardless of ethnic heritage or skin color. It is important to remember that we are all Americans. The United States is almost 250 years old, a mere child in relation to the 6,000 years of recorded human history. Why has this young nation developed so far so fast? The reason for the United States' greatness is the blessing of God and the gift of freedom, economic, political, and religious freedom. Along with true freedom comes the sense of duty and responsibility. If duty and responsibility decline in the nation, there will be a corresponding decline in national greatness. For God has proclaimed, "Righteousness exalteth the nation, but sin is a reproach to any people." The United States became one of the most prosperous nations in the world because of the willingness of her people to produce the things they need. The majority of Americans have looked upon the ability to work as a blessing and have seen labor as a dignified way to fulfill their life, responsibility, and thus glorify God. When Americans lose their willingness to work, America will no longer be prosperous. The second most important factor in America's prosperity has been the nation's system of free enterprise or capitalism. Capitalism has given Americans an incentive to strive for excellence and has brought the greatest amount of wealth to the greatest number of people that the world has ever known. There would have been no great inventions or technological advancements in the United States without the free enterprise system. Another blessing of the United States flowed from its traditional respect for human life. Although legalized abortion has eroded respect for life, Americans still spend billions of dollars each year for health care and for saving human lives. And, strange as it may seem, the institution of capital punishment for murderers is a sure sign of respect for human life. For man is created in God's image. The current hesitancy to require or to enforce capital punishment for murderers is thus a further indication of a declining respect for the value of human life. Freedom and prosperity are fragile things, Daniel Webster, one of our most eloquent orators, spoke with great wisdom when he said, God grants liberty only to those who love it and are always ready to guard and defend it. President Calvin Coolidge reminded us of the effort involved in gaining and maintaining freedom. The meaning of America is not to be found in a life without toil. Freedom is not only is brought with a great price, it is maintained by unremitting effort. Once you earn freedom, he says, you can't just simply be content with it, you have to continue to work towards it. The domestic problems and the foreign dangers which confront our nation today are due to the crumbling of the moral and spiritual foundations upon which our country was founded. However, we do not have to despair in the future. God is still on the throne of the universe. It is important that you learn all you can about your great country, that you can stand up for our great principles that have made America great. As the great English conservative Edmund Burke said at one time, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men simply do nothing. America's system of government by itself is insufficient to bring about continued order, prosperity, and progress. There needs to be a common foundation of moral and cultural absolutes. The only cure for our nation's ills is the preaching of the gospel and its daily application to the lives of its citizens. As it says in Psalms 33, verse 12, Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And that concludes today's section, guys. Make sure on page 396 you do the 24.3 review. Actually, sorry, no. I already said at the beginning, no section review, guys. Sorry for the confusion. No section review. All right, and I will see you guys tomorrow when we start talking about your test. Have a good one.